Dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome at the opening conference of the CEU Democracy Institute. My name is Laszlo Bruszt. I'm the co-director of the Democracy Institute, or what we call DI. We have this conference today on the premises of Budapest-based graduate school of the Central European University, a graduate school that was ranked as the best higher education institution in social sciences in Hungary. And that was listed among the best in Europe and in the world. We are on the premises of the university that was the first and hopefully the last in the EU to be arbitrarily forced out of its country of its origin and forced to resettle and find a new home in another EU member state. We are in the premises of a university that since its foundation 30 years ago has been committed to promoting values of open society and self-reflecting social thinking. The fact that we launch today the CEU Democracy Institute on the premises of CEU is a message to all of those who have supported us during the hard times, that the spirit of CEU is alive in Budapest, that why CEU has found a new home in Wien. It wants and it will maintain its presence in Hungary by establishing the Democracy Institute and furthering research on issues of democracy. We have to thank to too many people for helping the coming about of this institute, and I do not even try to list them all. But let me name only 3 of them for the special role they have played in bringing about the CEU DI. I have to start with Michael Ignatiev, former rector and president of CEU. Without his support, DI would not be here today. Michael wholeheartedly embraced the idea of DI, and while he was forcing us to write altogether 17 drafts until he has sent our proposal to the Board of Trustees, he carefully guided the birth and the first steps of DI. We have to thank to Provost Liviu Matei for his support in the funding period, for being ready to open the purse of CEU several times, and for helping to insert DI in the Open Society University Network. We have also special thank to former Prorector Zsolt Enyedi for co-writing the 17 drafts mentioned before, and ceaselessly representing the case of DI at various levels of the CEU. We have to thank him, actually, the name of the institute. Initially, I suggested a name that was baroque and complex, something like Altiero Spinelli Institute for the Study of National and Transnational Democracy, CEU. George looked at my first draft, and then he said, we could simplify this. Let us call it CEU Democracy Institute. We at DI study democracy, a multivocal concept, a contested set of values and institutions, an attempt at managing social and political diversity in a rule-based and peaceful way. Democracy as a way of life is also about human dignity and about the pride of being a full-right citizen of a political community. That democracy is in the end about dignity and pride, I have learned in 1989 at the dawn of the regime change in Hungary. The transition to a multi-party system has started already in 1988, and we were so excited about the new opportunities that many of us has joined immediately several parties. I have only joined 2 of them. I was hesitant to join a third one, but I was very busy with organizing independent unions, so I had no time for that. With friends and colleagues, we often went to the countryside to convince our fellow citizens to join the party of the day, or to convince them to join independent unions. The dramaturgy of these public events or gatherings were always the same. After we have finished our introductory speeches, one by one, people from the audience stood up and started to talk. You could see on their faces, first somewhat uncertain and then slowly turning to resolute and full of pride, that this was the first time in their life that they were talking before a public about politics, about public matters. You could see their pride that they can do so and they dare to do so. You could see in their eyes the pride that they are citizens, adult persons in no need to wait to someone to tell them what they want, what they can and should do. That they are not mere subject of politics anymore, that they have rights that no one can take away from them. The right of free speech, the right of assembly, the right to organize and strike, and I can go on with the list of these rights. These rights are under attack in several parts of the world nowadays, and DI deals with the study of those factors that are responsible for the decline of these rights and that could help to reestablish and sustain these rights. So what is DI? In the first place, DI is a research institute, assembling the strengths of CEU and combining it with a global network of scholars for the study of these questions. We have research fellows from around a dozen CEU departments, and in our 5 working groups, we have historians, medievalists, political scientists, lawyers, students of public policy, sociologists, students of network sciences and environmental studies, and I can go on. Then we are a platform of transnational collaborative research, serving as organizers and participants in dozens of European and global research initiatives. Besides participating in 2-3 years long research initiatives, we are collaborating with Sciences Po and the Max Planck Institute to establish the first transnational center for the study of sustainable democratic societies that would bring together in lasting collaborative network students of democracy from Europe and from the global south. Second, we are also teaching and training unit of the CEU. All of our full-time researchers teach in CEU Wien, and we are in the process of establishing programs that could fit the needs of our CEU doctoral students. Then in the framework of the Open Society University Network, we are also working in knowledge sharing and capacity building projects that could strengthen research and teaching capacity in other parts of the world. Finally, we are determined to continue the outreach activities of CEU in Budapest and strengthen our roots in Hungary. We are working on extending our collaborative ties with research institutes and think tanks in Hungary. We have been running the István Bibó Free University that organizes debates among scholars and activists of different political colors on public issues and provides courses to politically active citizens on broad issues of economy, politics, and society. We have good collaborative ties with the Office of Budapest Mayor, and we were among the organizers of the first Budapest Forum, the platform for the Pact of Free Cities. We host the CEU Borderless Knowledge Project that is based on the principle that science belongs to everyone. And in its open lecture series, CEU professors, leading Hungarian experts, and well-known public figures discuss exciting recent scientific findings and their direct impact on our everyday lives. Finally, besides our outreach programs in Hungary, we also have a project that is global in its outreach, and this is the Review of Democracy, or what we call RevDem. An online journal, an open platform to discuss, analyze, reflect on, and develop possible solutions to challenges to democracy across the globe. Published by the DI, RevDem is produced by 6 editors and 11 section heads coming from 4 continents. Their work is helped by 15 assistant editors, doctoral students from major graduate schools from all around Europe. RevDem covers topics ranging from the rule of law to the history of ideas, and it has a special section devoted to cross-regional dialogue. It publishes op-eds, reviews of new books on democracy, interviews, podcasts done by our editors. And we are proud to host in the future also the podcast series on democracy made by CEU Rector and President Randeria Shalini. The goal of this conference is to provide an introduction to the diversity of the approaches DI pursues in probing democracy. We would like to thank all participants of our panels for coming or those who will come only online, and this is unfortunately the majority. Wish them interesting debates. To our audience, finally, I wish lots of ideas and challenging questions. Let me now invite CEU President and Rector Randeria Shalini to give her welcoming regards. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Laszlo, and thanks for the invitation to both of you and to Eva. I must say, my experience of democracy is exactly the opposite of yours. I was born into an Indian democracy, and I realized how strange and specific an animal the democracy institutions are when we lost it when emergency was declared in India when I was a student. So this is 1975 to 77. I lived for the first time in my life, under a regime in which all the freedoms I had taken for granted were just taken away overnight. And this is when I realized how precious democracy is, that we cannot take it for granted, and that it's going to be a daily struggle for us as citizens to be able to not only maintain democratic life and institutions, but also really engage with a daily commitment to them. So this was a wake-up call. I was a young college student. I was part of the people working then. We were all in illegal networks because freedom of press was gone overnight when Mrs. Gandhi declared the emergency after she lost the election. So it was very much a Trump-like scenario in January that we saw. She lost the election and decided that there was a national emergency and there was a possibility of a civil war, and therefore she would declare a state of emergency. We didn't have Agamben to theorize it for us, but we did know in practice what it meant to lose overnight just every right as a citizen that you thought it's already there, and you can rest assured it will be there. And so when I returned after my studies abroad to India, I was also a member of the first civil liberties organization in India, the first organization for democratic rights. This was the split between civil liberties and democratic rights in India, which was a very major split in the civil liberties movement. I won't go into it there. But before I became a student of democracy, therefore, I was an activist. And it's years of activism then with social movements, which continued during all my anthropological research. So issues of democracy have been very, very close to my heart. And I have, as you mentioned, during the pandemic, started with a podcast. It's called Democracy in Question. And as I said recently, it seems to be doing well in many countries of the world, but I don't know what to make of the statistics, because if you are number 2 podcast in Nepal, you don't know if there are only 2 podcasts in Nepal, right? So one just doesn't know how to read these numbers. But if you look at the numbers, they fluctuate across countries, but they seem to be doing reasonably well. So it's well and alive. And I'm very happy that it's going to be hosted by the Democracy Institute as well. I started it at the IWM, but I also started in Geneva at the Graduate Institute, where I was a professor until a month ago when I came to the CEU. I established 5 years ago the Albert Hershman Center on Democracy. And this is precisely because I thought the study of democracy needs to be done cross-nationally, but it was too Eurocentric, the way it was being done. And it was focused very much on all the normative ideals, patterns, institutional patterns that were either Western European or American. And I thought, if you want to understand what democracy means in real life, at a very paradoxical time in which we live, we have formal democracies being established almost everywhere, and substantively, democracies being hollowed out almost everywhere, and being hollowed out using formally legitimate democratic means. And I think this is what makes it a very particular conjuncture in which we are living. If you've seen the recent British laws on demonstrations, there we see another very alarming development. Look at the French laws at the moment on what kinds of, they aren't laws yet, I think, they're still in the making, but about what kinds of university disciplines are un-French because they are American. So these are post-colonial studies, studies of gender and of critical race studies. So there's a huge pushback against all of these disciplinary configurations, some of which you know from your own context here, are also not seen as disciplines, but as a way of promoting activism within the university. So these are struggles which are at the heart of even what were once seen as well-established American or British or Western European democracies. And we see a democratic recession, a backsliding in many, many other countries of the world. And I think, therefore, not just a study of the backsliding of that democracy, but what does it mean to live in, what are democratic practices, and what is democracy as a way of life? And I think it's very different in different societies, and I think, and within a society for different sets of people. And I think we really need to understand that at a level which is maybe different from only an institutional or a constitutional analysis, but there it's my anthropological self which speaks. So it's very much about understanding way of life and of daily practices. That said, I'm very happy to be here and to congratulate the Democracy Institute on its successful founding. Despite 17 iterations of the founding document, I can only thank all of you who persevered and rewrote it. And I was a board member, so I can congratulate myself for having allowed you to found the Institute. No, that's not meant. Seriously, the board was extremely supportive of the founding of the Institute, and we were very, very enthusiastic when Michael Ignatiev suggested to us that the Democracy Institute be founded here. So, of course, it's an important presence of the CEU here in Budapest, where, as Laszlo just pointed out, we are no longer allowed to teach any of our American accredited programs, which we have moved to Vienna. Nevertheless, we will continue to have a robust presence here, a presence which is marked not only by archives or our Institute of Advanced Studies, so institutional presence, but also a very strong research presence, thanks to the Democracy Institute. So I'm happy that you organized this event on probing democracy. I believe you have 120 registrations. More people are with us online than in the room. But nevertheless, I think it's important that we are back, or at least some of us are back in the room, because it is a different discussion in person than it has been all of last year online. So I very much hope we can continue with our discussions with physical presence. I'd like to welcome, to thank, and to express my very deep gratitude for so many people who have made not only the Democracy Institute possible, but also this particular event and the other events you've had, including the Democracy Forum, which Laszlo mentioned just before me. So I'd like to thank the researchers and the staff of the Democracy Institute, all of the CEU faculty who are affiliated with the DI, researchers also affiliated to other Hungarian research institutions, the former Research Institute of the Academy, members of the diplomatic community in Budapest who have been major supporters of the CEU all of these years, including in 2017, when we got a lot of support at the time when we were confronted with Lex CEU quite unexpectedly, members of the CEU alumni community who have joined us online as well. The conference is going to bring together a lot of the research that people at the Democracy Institute are doing. It's also going to show the breadth of issues, thematic issues that you're interested in, and it's also going to launch 3 books. I'm afraid I'm going to be in a parallel universe in the next building, only taking care of administration, but I will try and go online now and then in my little coffee breaks to catch up, and then I'll catch up with you sometime during the day. So please excuse my absence, but it's because there are sort of three lives to be led, one in Vienna, one in Budapest, an intellectual life which is shrinking daily, and an administrative life which is growing, unfortunately, daily. But that's a job I chose to do, so I can't complain. It's been an exciting beginning for me as well, the last 1 month. And all I can do is to wish you, the Democracy Institute, and the conference a very productive discussion during today and tomorrow. And I hope to join anytime I can to come back. Thank you so much.